Honorable political leaders, distinguished audience, dear friends. Hard but fair global human rights and sustainability, or another conflict, is an excellent subject for this evening, because there's a problem at stake. Human rights are perceived today as a new key of mutual understanding and acceptance. The intransigency against any attempt at discrimination, against freedom of speech, against any anti-democratic attempt at leadership, the condemnation of the ultra-nationalist political discourse, and the actual fights against terrorism, all this is nothing but the sequel of this new way of understanding the reality. Briefly, the human person has got back its rights, occupying the central place from where it had been dislocated through the totalitarian ideology. But beyond this optimistic image of post-totalitarian society in Central Southeastern Europe, in north of Africa, in other parts of the world, we should not overlook the fact that the perception upon the ideal of freedom achieved so much and hard suffering can also be distorted. The excessive idealization may transfer the fundamental of freedom, such as they appear in the Declaration of Human Rights, to utopian spheres. Ignoring this ideal, and particularly the pedagogy of suffering to assertive self, making it formal, can move the interest and pole of action towards an area characterized by pseudo-values, falseness, and imposture. Our present world faces a series of paradoxes. Underdevelopment does not exclude arming. Democracy does not eradicate corruption. And market economy fails to prevent ecological disasters and unemployment. 60 years after it was adopted, the Universal Declaration on Human Rights is systematically defied, either for ideological pretext or under the endemic burden or poverty. It would be inappropriate to leave out of this short presentation what might be called the globalization of vices: organized crime, traffic of drugs, weapons, radioactive substances or human organs, child prostitution, pedophilia, underground economy, tax dungeons and forced immigration, are most striking, but not only aspect of worldwide ills that governments, law forces, or humanitarian organizations have to do battle against, often admitting their inefficiency. What can we do to avoid such situations? First, we can try to make a distinction between the human rights and its related concept as democracy and the rule of law, upon which is focused the energy of civil society. From our experiences during the communist regimes, we can understand the easiness with that the totalitarian regimes may accept the rule of law principle. I could so I could see how the free election slogans shouted in front of the tanks and weapons belonging to the communist repression in 21st December 1989 in University Square in Bucharest could be used for the seizure of power by the former communist nomenclature and the new oligarch. I did see now in many parts of the world the shop window of democracy could disguise itself into a real democracy. I did see how the commanders and the authors of crimes against their own people could fend off criminal responsibility through prescription because the agreements regarding genocide do not apply to their situation and the general recognition of crimes against humanity is thus delayed. After all, can we actually give the human rights a generally accepted definition? In order to stand before one another with our particular affinities and needs, it is necessary to establish a universal consensus referring to those moral values that protect not only each community, but also each person. How could we initiate a real dialogue to discover it? It's, in my opinion, it's risky to establish such a consensus around the idea of good. We can surmise that for centuries from now on, every society will have its own views about its spiritual and earthly welfare. Therefore, if we cannot always perceive the common good, it seems to me more reasonable to begin with identifying the common harm. It is in the interest of all nations to meet on the same ground in order to reject what they all reckon to be intolerable. I am confident that everyone here refuses from the very beginning the idea of war, terrorism, torture, pollution, crime of opinion, xenophobia, racism and genetic manipulation, exploitation of children, social exclusion, hunger, professional discrimination on sex, religion, or ethnic affiliation. We have the duty to diagnose together these diseases so that we can heal together the wounds that they continue to make. I conclude many distinguished speakers will participate in this evening a debate on this theme. And let me to wish successful for all participants of this panel. Thank you.